when it comes to these days, you do have 30 seconds to tell a compelling story, to stop someone's thumb from scrolling up on a device. What is the thing that's going to stop people in their tracks and make what you are doing or offering relevant? And also, at this day and age, appeal to your consumer's mind, their sense of humor, their quirks. Who are they? And what's going to put a little smile on their face or make them go, I was just talking about this the other day, or I was just thinking about this the other day. So the ability to tell stories now is the name of the game.
Welcome to the Events Demystified podcast, where we demystify the world of in-person, virtual, and hybrid events, AV production, and AI technology by sharing practical tips, tricks, and strategies to help your event succeed. This podcast is brought to you by Trefan Events, a woman-owned boutique event production agency that caters to event professionals, small business owners, and entrepreneurs. We specialize in AV and AI education, integration, automation, and implementation, all based on our Fit for Events framework, which focuses on futuristic AV production, innovative AI technology, thriving audiences, and empowering behind-the-scenes teams. And your host, Anka Platon Trefan, with over 2 decades of hands-on experience in event production, event management, and now AI technologies and cybersecurity.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Events Demystified podcast. I'm your host, Anka Platon Trefan, and I am super thrilled to have you all tune in. Today, we're demystifying the world of brand storytelling through the lens of video production with our featured guest, Shelby Ring, CEO of Brand Narrative Video Production, a company dedicated to helping brands tell their unique stories through high-impact video content. With over a decade of experience in the world of event production and creative production, Shelby has led teams across the diverse industries in events, shaping narratives for brands large and small. What makes Shelby stand out is not just her expertise in managing the complexities of video production, but her passion for storytelling, which is something that I'm super excited to dive into, and creating deep emotional connections through visual media. Outside of work, she's a self-proclaimed chief cat herder, which is super awesome, a title that speaks to her incredible ability to manage creative chaos. And she brings that same energy to her personal life. Just a fun fact about Shelby, which I found interesting. She has a love for animals and yes, has actually herded a group of rescue cats at one point, like real cats. She also enjoys breaking away from her busy life to dive into outdoor adventures like hiking and paddleboarding. So without further ado, let's welcome Shelby Ring to the show. Welcome
Anka,
to the
thank you
show.
so much. Oh, I am so happy to be here. I mean, that introduction, how can you not be pumped to be on your show after watching that? That was amazing.
Well, you know what? I'm super excited to meet. What's the background with this self-given title of Chief Cat Herderer? It sounds like you've had to keep a lot of creative energy in line. And before we dive into all the nitty-gritty and exciting work that you do, I want to know, how did that come about? But also, what's one favorite fun fact that you feel that not a lot of people know about you?
Ooh, well, the chief cat herder title came from the nuance of my team. Everyone had cats, and then also there was an old commercial in the early 2000s of there's these men out on this ranch and they're in their Western cowboy hats and boots, and then they start talking about they're out in the ranch and they're herding literal cats, and of course the chaos that comes with that. So we loved the ad, we loved the branding, how brilliant that ad was, and I just began being called the cat herder and in event production in the timelines. And yeah, it is herding cats on event days, as you know. So that's where that came from. It stuck, and something that people don't know about me, perhaps, I am an avid partner dancing dancer. So I love waltz, blues fusion, salsa, bachata, two steps. I mean, I could go on. I love partner dancing, though. That's one of my greatest joys in my life.
Well, the question is, are you good at it or you just love it?
What I am a
Because I'll tell you,
perpetual
I do love it too, but I am no good at it.
I love it. Well, I am a lifelong student of it. I'll say that. How about that? I love getting lost in it. My partner is also a blues dancer and a waltz and an East Coast swing dancer, so we have a good time together.
I love it. Well, yeah, the few times when I went, it was more of a let's get a bunch of girls together and have a few drinks and then decide that we're going to learn bachata and some
Oh,
other salsa moves. Let's
yes.
just say that it was more fun than steps and we definitely enjoy ourselves, but I don't think we actually took a lot home from those lessons.
But you had a great memory, which is what matters, right?
That's right. That's right. That's what
Oh.
matters. So, what's interesting, going back to this title of cat herder, because you're very right. I was talking to another lady in marketing, and she also does a lot of creative work in production and design and content and some video as well. And we were talking about how she's been in that field for about 25 years and how much she has to herd the creatives, the people that she works with. She has a large team and it's a full-time job. It's not easy. It takes quite some talent to be able to meet everyone on their own level and to be able to work with so many different personalities. So I would love to hear more from your perspective, how you handle that and how this title has helped you to maybe get better at it, or it just gives you kind of like an easy way to establish rapport, and then from there it's like there's still work that has to be done.
Yes, and that's such a beautiful explanation of it is such a scope of when you're in event production, when you're in the world of working with video, working with so much post-production, and of course pre-production, you're working in all different directions with a number of people. And I like to think of it as so when people are perhaps left brain dominant or right brain dominant, and I'm curious what your experience is, Anka, as someone that's in this same world. I find that, yes, my team, I think that anyone that's drawn to the creative field and with photography, video production, there's something nostalgic typically behind it, or there's an artist that's within each of us that's drawn to that field. And I see my role as how can I facilitate the most efficient experience for my artists to be in their realm of genius, assign them appropriate seats. So my director of photography, he is incredibly OCD. His artistic process is he is extremely, extremely detail oriented. So we've learned that he needs plenty of time in the day of media setup. I need to give him at least 2.5 hours to dial in the set design where he feels really confident and like we're putting our
Mhm.
best foot forward. So it's knowing the nuances of your team and their creative process and building a client facing experience. So, with the client, building out the day of itineraries that they are also on board, know what to expect, and they're not going, why is that guy in there playing with that C stand
For
for the
so
last
long.
2 hours? What is he doing? Just turn the light on and let's go.
Right.
Right? So it's like being able to hold both sides of the client operations, which to me is probably the left brain that's more of the analytical dominant, and then the right brain, which is the artist in me, that's the sensitive side, that's the good at asking questions, good at making people feel comfortable on camera, and the whole team that's a part of the production, because it's not just my staff, it's also our client staff, and knowing that anybody that's on camera or helping facilitate the day, they're also the rock star of the day to help pull off such a massive production when it's a multi-day shoot. So I think the chief cat herder role, not only is it a mouthful, but it's also a wonderful description of what we do in video production.
Totally. Yeah, when I first came at it, I remember having to learn that myself because I consider myself quite flexible and I can move from let's go, go, go versus now we're going to slow down. Now we're going to take our time. Now we're going to really dive into details and make sure that every T is crossed and I is dotted and all of that. But as I started working with larger teams, you're right, I had to really pay attention to the way other people work. Like, not everybody is able to drop something in an instant and move from one task to the next,
Yes.
nor are they able to not focus on what they have to for hours at a time and then just switch tracks to do something else. And it's learning what everyone is really skilled at. And then if there's weaknesses, instead of just trying to fix somebody's weaknesses, I'd rather actually bring in someone else that is strong in those areas so that it's more efficient that way. Let's just say
Yes.
that, right? So you're right. Like, sometimes, as I think females in these roles, being able to be the client interface, but also be able to have the back of our team, we do have quite a special position that we feel. But also, I think there's a lot of empathy that we're able to not only understand the timeline that a client operates on, but also understand our team and be able to advocate for, I need more time and this is why, or we need to make sure that, everything is set up the right way, because nobody wants to do this again after a full day of shooting, right? So we
Yes.
nail it or we don't. And it's a matter of like trying to negotiate those things, even in the list of details like location and timeline and breaks and all those little things that go into right around a show with the client in a way that it empowers them to know that they're in the hands of confident, capable teams, and you don't have to worry about anything, because there's some clients that are just nervous Nellies.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
phew, it's like, okay, just let us do our job.
Yes. I know anytime that, I mean, when we're working with teams that have engineers on board or are very type A personalities, I love it because I'm like, oh, you love data. You love understanding the process. So I understand how deep do I need to go into the technical side to give them a grasp of what is the scope of what we're trying to pull off versus if it's someone that's broad strokes, hey, get it done, then I know how to tailor the language. Because you're exactly right. I mean, there's when people are nervous and they have a baseline anxiety presence, you have to know how to package it to put them at ease.
Absolutely. Well, let's get into the heart of it. You've built brand narrative around the concept of video production and storytelling. Can you maybe share with our listeners, how do you define brand storytelling and why is it so important, especially in today's digital landscape?
Oh, I love this question. So, at my company, Ruby Riot Creatives, what we are specializing in was 11 years ago. Yes, we would just show up with cameras and microphones, and we would make essentially explainer videos of the who, what, where, when, why of a company or an organization. We had 5 minutes of viewer attention span at that time for that video to live on their website. 5 minutes. People used to pay
That
attention
feels
to
like
it.
a long time.
Oh my gosh, that's pretty much like a Netflix series these
Right.
days.
Like 3
And
seasons.
yes, yes, it's Game of Thrones. That's what we had to work with to tell a brand story. And what I recognized as technology progressed, as Instagram and the algorithms and the trend of data consumption sped up, we recognized there was a need for, in pre-production, understanding what is the story before we ever set up or step foot on a set. So when it comes to these days, you do have 30 seconds to tell a compelling story, to stop someone's thumb from scrolling up on a device. What is the thing that's going to stop people in their tracks and make what you are doing or offering relevant? And also, at this day and age, appeal to your consumer's mind, their sense of humor, their quirks. Who are they? And what's going to put a little smile on their face? Or make them go, I was just talking about this the other day, or I was just thinking about this the other day. So the ability to tell stories now is the name of the game. It's no longer just following a to-do list or an algorithm. You have to have some humanity in what you're offering, especially in this day and age of AI and all this AI generated content that's out there. You have to
You're
connect
talking
with
about my
the
AI avatar introducing the podcast. Just kidding.
I mean, they did a great job. I'm not, whatever
um,
Miss AI robot.
I'm kidding. That's my Miss Mira, my AI avatar. I
Miss
usually
Mira, she did a
Mira.
great job. Oh my gosh.
She
Does she
usually
freelance? Does she need
she
some
does.
side work?
She honestly is fully booked right now. But if she has some availability, I'll let you know.
It's so good. Miss Mira, I mean, she did an amazing job. It's like she was born to do what she's doing. But
But
really just
I get your point. You're very, very right. And I feel like going from those 5 minutes, as you mentioned, a few years back to now, I think the trend has been that our attention span is that of a goldfish, and it's not looking good for us. It's like 9 seconds.
gosh,
How
such
do you package someone's value, someone's creative and brand's core values into a short video reel that would tell their story? Can you walk us through your process for capturing the essence of a brand through a video that at this point feels like it's just a few seconds long?
Yes. So at this point, the biggest thing that I have to start with is building on a foundation of strategy. So for me, a successful brand video strategy is understanding who are the players at the table. So I want to understand within a company, when we take on a scope for brand design, brand campaigns, I want to understand what is the personality of your founder? Who are the people that are steering this ship? What are their personalities? Are they sarcastic? Are they dry-witted? Are they super intense and just like go, go, go? Like, what are these personalities so that I can understand what is their narrative of what is the solution we're driving? And then we build out the spectrum of who are the end users? Who is this product or service? Who's the dream customer? So we build out these two, like, I don't know if you ever played the game The Sims, where it's just this complete building out these realities of the personalities at play. And it's finding the cross sector of, I know that if I produce a product tutorial about this time management app for CEOs, I know that if I put the founder on camera, he is sarcastic and dry-witted as all get out. So I know that I'm going to push to introduce dry-witted humor into how they introduce something, because that's the way he's going to shine. And that person that also appreciates the time-saving app that's going to bring them their secret long-lost love of free time or control over their schedule, I'm going to make those places, those personalities connect. So when it comes to building out what is the angle, I look for the concept first and foremost. What is the thing that, yes, your application may be a time management application, but what it really is it's a love story, and your time management app is reuniting two long lost lovers, successful overextended CEOs with their long lost love of free time. So it's bringing a story that's in between the lines and then shooting it in a way that the people, our cast, our characters, if you will, are going to be successful, versus putting a very dry-witted, direct person on camera and saying, I want you to pretend that you're a golden retriever of a human and smile and act like you're selling an infomercial. It's going to nosedive. And I think that a lot of video production companies, they want to just do this one size fits all talking head experience for founders to look like they're politicians, right? Like they're just smiling. And that is, for some people, that's not their vibe. And for our company, we have a little bit of a punk rock edge to us. We like to question the way things are, and we appreciate individuality. So my secret sauce is I want to sit and have some just candid conversations with the people that we may have on camera, and I want to understand what motivates them and what gets under their skin, what lights them up, and I'll write a script. I'll write a narrative based on the personalities at play and ultimately who you're going to serve.
I love that. Now, we all know that video production can be quite a huge investment for some companies. And I'm curious from your experience, what have been some of the challenges or biggest challenges that you see that brands face when they're trying to use video as a tool for storytelling? And how do you help them overcome those challenges?
So, some of the biggest challenges, especially for small to mid sized businesses where they decide we need to invest in video, we're finally going to be doing it. Our marketers have pushed us to get on camera for however many years now. We're going to pull the trigger. The first thing is understanding what's going to give you the biggest bang for buck
Mm-hmm.
and how much is that buck? What can you expect to spend and the return on investment? A mistake that many businesses make is they have worked with a photographer in the past, someone who takes still images, and they think, oh, well, video, photo, it's pretty much the same thing. There's just music set to it, right? Wrong. Those are two entirely different ecosystems. Our metrics for photo shoot work versus video production is about a 7-to-1. For every 1 hour that it would take for us to turn around photo, it's 7 hours that we are producing, building script narratives, editing, re-editing, being able to actually color grade, sound design, sound mixing, the amount of times for revisions. It's a different ballpark. So I always like to tell people whatever you've spent on a photographer in the past, just take that number times 7, and that's likely going to get you in the neighborhood of the caliber of production. So if you have spent $5,000 on a photographer to come into your offices and do headshots for people, some lifestyle shots, expect to pay somewhere in the neck of the woods of 35 grand for a proper video campaign. Now, what constitutes a excellent bang for buck video campaign in today's day and age for people's attention spans and people's behavior of how they consume technology, data, information? It's small bites. You have to release small bites. So that's where a content marketing strategy comes in. I'm sure that every marketing chief of staff right now is like, yes, I have been saying this forever, because it is, you have to sprinkle and leave breadcrumbs for the way people consume data. So it's, you have targeted ads on LinkedIn if that's your neck of the woods. You consider investing in a video podcast where you're releasing one episode per month, and you have some longer format data that's floating out there in the consumption world of YouTube and shorts for whatever other relevant platforms. But you have to get those multiple impressions of showcasing the personality, the ethos, and the heart behind what you're doing, especially if you are in a crowded market, especially if you are in a technical niche where when people are price shopping, it is the people behind the brand that make the difference. So leading with, if you are looking to invest in video production for the first time, be aware of the budget expectations, a 7-to-1. That's always just a good baseline for people. And be expecting to have a full-blown campaign of content that ultimately should be getting you anywhere from 3 to 6 months worth of a drip system for content marketing. So it's 20, 30 videos that are under 30 seconds, or it's longer form 30-minute episodes, and you're pulling bite sizes of key points, pain points for your customers, and really leverage, if you have a team that's filming with you for 1 day, 3 days, that 2 to 3 days you invested ultimately helps you for the next 2 quarters of your revenue goals, your project management goals, where you're trying to go. So that's my easiest crash course for people that are looking to make a successful video campaign.
I love it. Now, when it comes to founders that struggle with being on camera, and there's so many, especially CEOs, founders, doesn't matter male or female, that are just having a hard time with being on
Yeah.
camera, especially if they're introverted. That I feel like it's the extra layer of complication that comes with that. What are some of the tips that you'd offer for anyone that just hates being on camera?
Oh, the people that hate being on camera are my favorite people to work with because one, I am extremely shy by nature. That's my baseline. And so I understand the nerves. So the best thing for people that hate being on camera, that I always tell them the moment they sit down and when I start to see the nerves or the panic or even in the meetings leading up to it, it's not about you. Even though you may be on camera, you may be talking about your services, it is not about you. When people are watching your content, they're trying to understand, is this for me? Is this something that could make my life easier, simpler, better, elevated? So it's not about you. Yes, we're going to make sure that you look great, that you're buttoned up, that your hair, you don't have any hair going rogue on the scene, you don't have spinach in your teeth. We're going to make sure that you look fine, that you're presentable. The other part of that is don't stress about people looking at you under a microscope, because if you have enough key points that are going to hit, because we have storyboarded and we have workshopped and you have an excellent pre-production process, by the time that you're sitting in that chair and you've got those lights blinding you and you fully understand what it is to be a deer in headlights, you should be incredibly supported by your production team for understanding where you need to go with the questions they're asking. So it's not about you. And the next part of that, I would say, imagine you're talking to one of your oldest friends, a friend from your fraternity, your sorority, just somebody that they understand you, they understand the scope of who you are, and they offer so much compassion and they love the hell out of you. Imagine that the person giving you those questions and that are feeding you the talking points, imagine that they're in the room and they are looking at you, whether it's through the camera, if you have to actually be looking direct into a camera, or off camera to an interviewer. Just think about that muse of that best friend, that lifelong friend that would be there to be supportive for you. That immediately relaxes the nerves, and your body language is going to reflect when you're a little more comfortable.
I agree. I play that trick with my kids. Every time it's time to take photos, I feel like they freeze and then they have those fake smiles, right? It's like, okay, all right.
Oh,
So what I've started doing is I would plant my husband behind me, behind the camera, making funny faces. So then when I take the photos, they look relaxed. They look like they're really smiling,
oh,
versus like the camera intimidates and just freezes them in that like fake smile.
yes.
It's not real, it's not authentic. And I love the fact that you said it's not about you, because I feel like a lot of people get stuck up on that. Like,
Yeah.
especially going on social media or going on LinkedIn, posting content. And I feel like the best way you can build a brand is by thought leadership. I'm sure there's plenty of things that that speak to your expertise and to your specific niche that you can be talking about, if you could only get over the fact that, as you mentioned, it's not about you. People are not going to judge your post that either you misspelled this or you missed a comma. And also, we live in a world where everybody's scrolling by so fast. If you think that people have the time to just stay over and analyze every word of every sentence on a post, or maybe look at every frame on a video, you're wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
So once you get that past that, and then you start getting more comfortable with, there's so much content out there. Yes, your content better be better than everybody else's to, draw attention, to catch that tiny attention span. But at the end of the day, like, we're inundated left and right by a lot of content. So don't make it about you. just speak to the brand, speak to whatever that sets your soul on fire, and be passionate about it. Let it come true. And that's what attracts people, and the storytelling that you just spoke to so beautifully. So before we break really quick for a sponsor ad, I am going to ask you a bit of an intriguing question. And that is something alluding to what we talked to earlier. What are the two things that your marketing director will never tell you because maybe they don't know how to ask when it comes to your video brand campaign? And how have you used AI to help, especially as you mentioned, with some of the snippets and some of I know quite a few tools, AI tools that can help with that. But in this whole packaging of a building of a brand campaign, have you used any AI, or are you familiar with anything that is useful at all?
So with AI, one, I'm so blown away by it, and I was a slow adapter where my partner kept saying, you need to be jumping in and using these tools. Why aren't you using this?" And I was like, "I don't understand exactly, like I'm old school." And the tools that I love is consider when you're trying to come up with your key messages. Let's say that you are hiring a local vendor and they don't do a full service brand campaign where they're going to help you craft language, build your copy, build a script. Don't be afraid to use AI. And I mean, Gemini, it's a free Google platform. Give prompts for, hey, I am a managed service provider that specializes in the legal sector. I'm considering doing some small shareable videos, but I am unclear on what kind of topics would be relevant for my target demographic, which is law firms, lawyers, associates in this space. Can you help me brainstorm some topic ideas, some headlines that maybe would grab the interest of my ideal client, and then hit send and see what you can do to partner with AI as your springboard of bounce the ball, refine it, and see what kind of ideas come up with. Because we used to do full-fledged brainstorming sessions that what I'm capable of doing now when it comes to using platforms like AI, like Gemini, for example, that's an easy one for when it comes to writing, is just framing, hey, I need some baselines to bounce off of. Use the tone for this. I want it to feel counterculture and punk rock and appeal to a male founder in his 40s. It can take that specific of a prompt and tailor your language and your messaging, and then you tweak it to what feels authentic to you. So I would say whenever it comes to overarching strategies, if you're doing your own brainstorming, explain, this is what I'm unclear on. Can you help me generate some ideas? Brainstorm with me. And the power that's behind those prompts is incredible. So that's an easy baseline. And your other thought was some of the most overlooked things that your marketing director will fail to tell you as the client when you are producing a brand campaign is, what are you supposed to wear? What actually is going to look good on you? And to answer those questions, there's a few things, but the biggest one is, where are you going to be filming? Look at the set design of where you will be. So if you're filming in your conference room, if you're going to actually transform the middle part of your office, look around, see, is it warm temperature color or cool temperature color? So are there pops of reds, oranges, or is it blues, purples, relaxed? And then think about your own complexion. We just launched this masterclass for on-camera styling, and one huge module of it is understanding what is your color palette. So it breaks down seasonally. Are you winter, spring, autumn, or fall, or winter, spring, summer? There we go. And summer, and recognizing what's your complexion, and know what pieces in your wardrobe are going to not only accentuate your face, your skin tone, your hair color, or your lack of hair. How do you shine? And being able to build your environment around you so that when you're paying tens of thousands of dollars to have people come in with big fancy cameras, often people drop the ball on what are you supposed to wear, and it's
Mhm.
usually honestly the founder's wife or husband that's advising them on, hey, wear the power suit with the purple pocket square, you look really great in that. But then you're in an environment where there's pops of orange in the background and you look like some type of carnival amusement asset. So the power of just thinking through and working, if you have the chance to work with your video team beforehand, understand where you're going to be, look at it with your eyes, or a creative person in the office that has a knack for painting or just has an understanding of color theory. Look at your own appearance, maybe do a quick Google search if you don't do a full master course on what's your color palette, because ain't nobody got time for that. But just see how can you build a cohesive set design, especially whenever you're just bringing in a one and done contractor that's going to come in, shoot what you said you wanted, and then walk away and you get some raw footage. So those are the two biggest things that I can offer for things that your marketing director may fail to say. And okay, just one more baseline. Make sure that you have the oil blotting, like Neutrogena oil blotting pads for your forehead
I
and
think
your
I have
whole
them
head.
here, like just in case, because my forehead tends to do that. I'm like,
Yes.
you would see me with those pads on my face.
Yes. And I mean, it's amazing how that can just make all the difference, especially for my seasoned male founders where
Yeah,
they're bald, they've got a certain look. And well, yeah, exactly. We didn't realize this is actually a sponsored podcast by Neutrogena
that's
oil
right.
blotting, but it makes all the difference in the world
Yep.
where but just something so subtle is make sure that you have, I mean, it's hair and makeup 101, but often marketing directors, they don't have the kahunas to come up to a powerful serial CEO and say, sir, I need you to take this paper towel and rub it all over your cue ball head so that you look great and people are paying attention to what you say versus the beautiful shine off of that
Right.
glorious scalp of yours. So it's like
The
those
light bulb
practical.
has gone on.
Yes, yes. So I mean, that's so basic, and yet at the same time, those are the things that often people are too intimidated to come up and say. But my team, we're like, yo, dude, we're trying to make you look fantastic. I'm gonna need you to take those paper towels because nobody listened to our actual creative brief beforehand to have these, and let's dry it off. Let's
I
make
love it.
you blend into your environment.
Well, I was going to add to some of the AI tools that you mentioned. Yeah, I think Gemini is a great tool, but anything creative, probably I would definitely rely on Claude and go from there. But then if you're someone like me that just hates on putting on clothes or trying clothes, I don't know about you, but you do not want to send me into a store and go shopping for multiple type of outfits and trying them on. I'm just not going to do that. So there's this new AI tool now that you can use. It's called Hugging Face. I think it's put out by AWS. And what you can do is take pictures of yourself, the outfit, and it automatically transfer the outfit onto you to see how you look in that outfit.
Oh my
It's like,
gosh,
yes, please.
dude.
And it's actually doing a pretty good job. I think I posted something on LinkedIn about it. And it was me in my gym workout. And I'm like, I'm going to try on some dresses now. And it's like, it would transfer the dresses on. I'm like, okay, maybe this one, maybe not that one. It's like
Amazing.
fantastic. Talking about time saver, right? And also not liking to try on clothes. There's people just
Yes.
don't. But another tip there, when I would work with talent and we know that we're shooting in a different locations because we do a location scouting and whatnot, I would ask them to send me photos of what they're planning to wear. And that way I would know right off the bat if this is going to conflict in any way, shape, or form with some of the set design, or maybe, as you mentioned, the lighting, or maybe the colors they're planning to. It's just going to make them blend in with the background.
Yes.
So just having a few different outfits, and then don't be afraid to share that with whomever you're working with, because most likely they're going to have a few thoughts if if that's a problem or if that's working just fine. It's just a matter of like having that extra eyes on, okay, we didn't think this through. You're literally looking, like you mentioned, you're either blending into the background or you're just part of the carnival joining
Yes.
this club
Yes.
right now. So great tips over there. Before we continue our conversation, we're going to take a quick break to thank our sponsor, Trefan Events, for supporting the show. So stay tuned for more insights from Shelby after this short message.
Before we continue, I want to give a shout out to the team at Trefan Events. We are not just an event planning and production agency. We are focused on integrating innovative AV solutions, AI strategies, and wellness-focused practices through our Fit for Events framework. Whether you're planning live, virtual, or hybrid events, the team at Trefan Events is here to provide personalized planning, strategic design, and seamless technology management to ensure everything runs flawlessly. And now, we are offering AI-powered workshops to help you grow your business, build stronger teams, and elevate your events to the next level. If you want to learn more about how the team at Trefan Events can help make your event unforgettable, visit trefanevents.com.
Welcome back. With us today, we have Shelby Ring, CEO of Brand Narrative Video Production and Chief Cat Herderer. Shelby, you've been talking quite a bit about the creative process, and I loved your ideas that you shared in the first part of the podcast. And I know that you also place such a huge emphasis on production and project management and the logistics and all the things that go behind video production. How do you keep all those cats in the hats? No cats in the hats. All those cats in line during production, ensuring that the timeline and the budgets are being met?
Beautiful question. I believe that the end result, what you're going to love from getting those files, getting the reviews, it all starts way at the beginning in pre-production. So in terms of setting budgets, that's so critical, right? Most clients, they have a very specific budgetary requirement they're operating in. So having the transparency at the start of understanding this is our cap, this is what we're able to do, and we work back from that perspective, that vantage point. The next part of that is really clear understandings of here's our suggestion of this is going to give you the greatest ROI. This is going to be the most relevant. Here's which assets and where we would recommend based on what you've told us about where your niche is, what's actively performing for you, who do you have to actually implement these things on your team. So understanding the placement first and foremost. And then from there, once we've crafted the framework of ultimately you're going to be getting 25 sub 30-second clips, and we are going to be addressing these pain points for your clients. We're going to do a B-roll scene of these actors that are doing this, they're frustrated and they're being lost. So being able to itemize everything out, and then the devil is in the details of clearly and succinctly building timelines with 15-minute increments. And it's thinking about not only a timeline that ties into our production, what my camera operators and my sound team needs to be aware of, but giving a parallel itinerary for our client to understand CEO needs to change into outfit 2. Here's a 30-minute block that they can go refresh, have a little bite to eat, transition, get into their next power suit, get ready to come on camera at this place in the office at this time. And if you're really on top of it, make a 5-minute buffer that they have where they need to be there at 2:45, but really 2:50 is when everything starts to happen. So I'm a big fan of giving people soft deadlines, but they perceive them as hard deadlines, because that gives me the grace as the director to not get into a level of panic if we start to run behind schedule 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15. We have those soft cushions in between for transitionary times. That's so critical, and I feel That's something I learned early on watching other people's productions is not everyone is robots. Not everyone reads very granular instructions. And so it's again catering to the personalities and the people and knowing, oh, that is a very type A, your chief information officer. And he's going to likely do 3 or 4 rounds of something we gave him 25 minutes for. If you can dial in the personalities, realize, oh, shoot, he might actually take 40 minutes. Good thing we have these 15-minute buffers in between scenes, because otherwise the alternative is you see your production team, that's your implementers, becoming more and more frazzled. We have less of a buffer to be able to adapt. Oh, we need to do battery changes, we need to swap out lights, we need to set up the next space, and it becomes this slow train disaster. So being able to set up really spacious timelines that are realistic, that give the opportunity for both your production team as well as your internal team success for it to be integrated well. That's pretty massive. And the next piece beyond the active production days is putting enough thought in the deliverables so that when your client says, yes, we are signing off on a 25 video campaign, this is what we expect, here's the storyboard, here's the points that this video is going to accomplish and why. So again, it's rooted back in strategy. What did we decide was the concept and what's our end goal? So we're not just winging it. The worst thing that just breaks my heart is, and I do my best to not find myself in these circumstances anymore, but people say, oh, we're just going to put our founder on camera and just let him roll. He really just works well off the cuff. And if you want to stay in budget, that is the polar opposite thing that you should do. It's just let someone rant on camera for 45 minutes because there's not a clear destination in sight, especially when we're talking in seconds. Every second, every half second matters for what scenes do we get to choose or what do we have to drop, because it's exceeding people's attention spans. The retention isn't going to be there for views. So I think that being cohesive from the start with the concept and making sure that everybody is clear and on board with understanding, here's our output, here's the expectation. So you're not at step 4 or 5 post-production land and saying, I'm looking at these revisions, but I don't really like the overall goal with this. I don't like this. What are we going to do? Because you can't just magically pull back that amount of effort on those production days. So the devil is in the details, certainly at the beginning. And the other thing that I love is the power of a teleprompter. If your team if they can read off of an iPad with size 40 print, I highly recommend, if we are doing specific ads, using the power of a teleprompter for your team to do as many takes, as many times that they need to nail that language that feels like them. But it's also for your editing budget. You're not going to blow through a colossal amount of time because you're not going to have your editor just pulling their hair out because they're trying to find a time that you didn't string a series of words together, or they're trying to emulate or use AI to generate your voice saying something. It gets very costly when there's not a clear objective in the deliverables.
I was going to say, like many of those off the cuff, it's only going to take 20 minutes, usually take many hours in post-production trying to fix or come up with a copy out of this off the cuff ranting that was going on. I'm like, how am I going to string 2 sentences together that actually makes sense so we can tell the story? And I've spent hours upon hours editing some of those, rants. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is such a waste of time. Like, I remember one December particularly where we had a lot of footage that we had to turn around, and man, so much work because there was a script, but it wasn't a script that was actually followed. And that's, I feel like, the worst, right? Like, you're doing diligent work to make sure there's a script, to make sure that people are aware that they can follow it, that it sounds like them and all of that. And then they don't, and they just go off the cuff, and it's like, here we go. And then usually that payback is on the back end, is on the
Yep.
production. And then going back to the budget, well, we couldn't stick to that budget anymore because now we had to spend so much more time in post-production. One question I was going to ask you is, how do you manage your own time, especially as you're doing all these projects, and then the deliverable timeline many times follows on top of each other, right? Because there's busy season for all of us. And you find yourself like, oh my gosh, grasping for air, trying to turn content around because you've had so many shoots leading to this one, and now there's another one, but then there's also the time to sit down and be able to go through all of this content so you can deliver.
So this question has been the question of a decade for me of how do you make this sustainable? I like to think of how can you maximize every day? So the biggest thing for me is recognizing essentially my post-production editing brain. The high cognitive ability for me is between 5 a.m. to about 8:45 a.m. That is my clearest, just least distraction, calm state of mind. So once I recognized that time of day is where I am firing on all cylinders, I guard that chunk of time pretty viciously. So it's phone is still on do not disturb. I don't take meetings typically, especially in those peak times in my schedule. So I block off knowing that's my best cognitive output. So I'm not going to schedule extroverted third-party stimulus exchanges. So I'm not going to take client phone calls, things that might deal me an emotional blow, because I can implement, but I'm also an incredibly passionate person. So when it comes to editing and dropping in the feels, if we are building a narrative film where I need to emote the soul of the foundation or the cause that we're telling the story of, I have headphones on, I'm listening to emotional music so that I can be in a flow state of being true with the beeline of energy for what the story is. So I think that being cognizant of your most productive times, guard them religiously, be able to put fail safes in for those times where there's no interruptions, no email checking, turn whatever technology fail safes where you don't get onto social media or any of those little dopamine junk food hits. The next part of that is when I look at my schedule from a weekly perspective, typically after big back-to-back shoots, especially if we're clearing over 10 hours of production time, whenever that wraps up, I am adamant of that. I give myself a fallout day. I give myself a day where I get to unravel. There's some form of pleasure in there. So if it's a massage session or just a really lavish time of being at the gym, sitting in the sauna, just that is the day that I try to set aside real self-care. And I may work pretty late that night before to make sure all of our footage is backed up on 3 or 4 different spaces, and my editors, I'm not bottlenecking any of the processes. Is everything uploading and going to who they need to go to? So I try to make sure that the infrastructure is in place for me to have my collapse day. Or one of my friends just taught me today, the language for it is rotting. When you just rot, when you are just watching a show and you're eating snacks and you are just rotting in society, apparently. I set aside a good chunk to just refill my cup, because otherwise I'm going to be projecting. I'm not going to be bringing my A game to my interactions with my clients, with my team. So that's something that I have to fill my cup and be diligent about setting up and looking at the schedule. If it's a crazy back-to-back time, that's the beginning of our call. It was like, when is your day that you're on such a marathon of your own production work? When's your moment that you get to, I describe it as like the day you just get to stare at a wall with a blank face and think about nothing. Like when you just need those times. I mean, when we're filming like 4-day Indian weddings that, I mean, we're logging easily 30, 40 hours within a set of 2 to 3 days because it's before sunrise, getting ready for these beautiful portraits into late in the evening, catching the celebrations. And my teammates know, like, I find those times to just slip away when there's a transitionary moment. And I just go and I sit and I relax my face and I just stare at nothing because that's how I need my brain to go back into a calm approach. So I think that when it comes to scheduling and transitioning between all the various cats that we are herding, all the many hats that we wear, it's critical to find the moments that when you're on that grind and you're going up, that you also factor in. You need to have the time to balance out as well and recover.
Absolutely. It goes back to that mental fitness and physical fitness that I'm very, very passionate about. I find myself waking up earlier and earlier. And it's so funny because over the years, I've been a night owl, but I'm turning now to be an early riser and talking about that focus time of like my 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. That's kind of like my time. It's amazing how much work you can get done when in the wee hours of the day when it's quiet in the house, nobody distracts you. Even the emails and the calls, they're not all coming in depending where you are on the map, but
Yes.
you're able to focus. And I've been definitely guarding that time for myself as well. And then for me, always recharging with a good workout session. I can't stare at the wall. I cannot do a recovery like just by doing nothing. It doesn't work for me. There's always some form of active recovery for me. And even tomorrow, I'm like, no, it's not going to be a sit around all day. It's going to be something active involved in that because that's how I function. That's how my body recharges. And it's good to see. And as you mentioned, acknowledge what works for you and just work with that so that you don't work against your own self, even during those high intense days of having to be productive and being able to have your cognitive responding and firing from all cylinders. Now, before we wrap up, Shelby, as video continues to grow in importance for marketing, where do you see the future of video production heading in terms of trends, technology, strategies? Any thoughts on that?
Well, we've touched on it a few times over this conversation, but the trend that I'm seeing is our attention spans are that of a squirrel's. So which to me, the trend that is the necessity coming out of the way people are consuming data is you have to have some form of riveting. The scene needs to speak for itself. And so you can't rely on the words because also people's consumption technology these days, they aren't listening to audio often because they're probably watching it in an environment where they don't need to be blasting sound. They don't want to be that person on the airplane that is blaring their phone, irritating everyone around them, or on the subway. So being able to vividly portray something, ideally in that first 1.5 seconds, that draws somebody in. And that can be, if it is a talking head piece, that the mannerisms, the passion of how you are interacting, the eye contact, people are very drawn to humans on screen, people, not just interesting graphics or a sound modulation to draw people in. People, that doesn't stop people in their tracks. So I think that a trend is honestly, it's creativity. You have to have something now that visually it makes people stop. So combining what happens if you're doing a talking infomercial, but you have a George Washington, Victorian era big wig on, but you're dead serious. You're going to stop someone in their tracks. So how can you use humor? How can you use, just think of any good Saturday Night Live improvisation, things that they look like they should, yet something's a little off. something's a little strange. It's those things that are ultimately going to slow people down. And of course, depending on your niche, depending on, yes, if you are a law firm and you are in a very intense industry, you're going to need to have an image that needs to be portrayed and transparent. But look at the most recent ad that Mercedes, I believe, came out with the chicken, and showing how the chicken's head in a variety of environments, it stabilizes. They took chickens and combined it to EDM dance music, and they created something that went viral for a very impressive vehicle. So it's the power of combining alternative realities of products, things, items in and finding interesting intersections. That is the heartbeat of creativity that will make you stand out in the way of today's digital age.
Absolutely. I think I want to land on something that I really liked that I heard from Pinar Demirdag. She's the CEO of Quibrick.
Okay.
It's a video production Hollywood company that deals with a lot of big movies, and they're very much leaning into AI. But what she was saying was, we are learning to distinguish the tedious, laborious parts of our workflow from those driven by our humanity, vision, and authentic selves. And as humans, those are the things that we should be focusing on more moving into this age of AI, because robots will always be better at being robots, whereas humans, they're always going to be better at being humans and having a vision and just being their authentic selves. I really love that, because it really goes to speak to some of the changes that are happening in our world. So to what you said, like being creative, and then there's so much work and mundane task that when you think about AI, it can definitely up level your productivity and make you more efficient if you know how to use those tools. Now, Shelby, I loved our conversation. For anyone that is interested to learn more about you and what you're up to, where can they connect with you?
The easiest place is go to our website. It's rubyriotcreatives.com. So Ruby like the stone, riot like a big party, and creatives like a group of artists, plural. That's where you can find our masterclass on the art of being on camera and shaking the nerves. If you have to be on keynotes, Zoom calls, any of the terrain that anyone that's moving and shaking these days has to be on, as well as our own podcast, The Ruby Hour, where we have our most recent stories. We are so passionate about having not a work-life balance, but a home life. Yes, just being able to herd all the cats in your life. So that's the easiest way that people can get in touch with us.
I love it. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for joining us today. And to our listeners, make sure to follow Shelby and her team at Brand Narrative, as she mentioned, and the address that she gave, Ruby Riot. And then don't forget to subscribe to the Events Demystified podcast for more conversations like this one. And until next time, I'm your host, Anka Trefan. I'll catch you on the next episode. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you for listening to the Events Demystified podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with other professionals like yourself. If you're interested in learning more about Trefan Events, including our future AI education talks and workshops, or to see how we can support your next event, book a free 20-minute consultation through the link in the episode notes. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and follow us on YouTube, Spotify, and social media for updates on future episodes, industry insights, AI news and tips, and more. And if you have any topics you'd like us to cover, feel free to reach out.